Good evening and welcome to The Naked Entrepreneur. In each episode, we feature an icon who's made it big in business. Tonight on the show, we've a very special treat, as we are joined by David Cohen. I'm your host, Sean Wise, and this is The Naked Entrepreneur. David Cohen, the founder and CEO of TechStars, will give us insight into what it takes to run the #1 business accelerator in the world. With over 150 companies funded and $80 million in capital raised to date, he will have incredible lessons to share with us.
My name is Lindsay Goodchild. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Green Gauge.
Jonathan Trump, founder and creative director of Tokyo Mouse Inc.
Mark Cohen, the co-founder and president of WebRocker.
No matter what the idea, be it product or service, profit or nonprofit,
Ryerson provides education, resources, and funding to help start and expand your businesses.
Relationships with other entrepreneurs can be a huge factor in your success. You may see that rock, and is it a diamond or not? How would you know? Talking with other entrepreneurs can help you know.
Welcome back. I'm here live via Skype with David Cohen from Boulder, Colorado. Thank you for joining us, David.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
David, you're most known for TechStars, but I want to go way back. I want to go into the very beginnings. I want to go back to 1991 if I can. So 1991, okay. If I'm not mistaken, you graduate college, you go for that job interview, you start at the company, you're doing what you thought you would do, you've got the training for it, you're going, and 36 months in, you're not so happy. You decide, that's not for me, I don't want to be an employee.
Yeah, wow, was it that long? 3 years? Yeah, I mean, I think I had one job interview in my whole life, after college. I mean, I did some odds and ends when I was younger, but one job interview out of college, and I lied well enough to get that job and pretended I knew that programming language that they needed, and got that job and held it for a while, but then really just decided that, we were creating a lot of the value, and I just wanted to create my own thing. I wanted to be, an entrepreneur, so it took only one experience to figure that out.
What was it like deciding that I was going to leave the workforce and go do it on my own? Was that something scary to you? Was that something you always wanted to do? Did you think that entrepreneur was the cool thing to do?
No, I didn't know if it was cool or not. I just, my father was an entrepreneur. He was a CPA. He had about 30 people in his firm, an accountant. And so I had grown up sort of seeing that and really just, thought we could do it. My partners and I could do it better than, what we'd seen out there. And it was not so much risk analysis. It was just, let's go do this. We're young. Our expenses are pretty low. We didn't have, families and houses to pay for, so we just decided, why not? It sounds fun. And our first business was really conceived of as just a business to support us. In fact, we wrote a book about it. My partner authored it called No Vision, All Drive.
No Vision, All Drive.
Yeah, it was basically the idea that we had no clue that it was going to get big. We thought it was just for the three of us. And a lot of businesses just start because people think that way, and they can turn into bigger businesses.
Well, let's go back to the three of you. You're talking about Pinpoint, I imagine. And,
yeah.
And when you guys decide to take that plunge, how did you come up with what you were going to focus on? Did you decide I was just going to compete with the people I was already working with, or was I going to try something different? Was there an opportunity?
Yeah, pretty much. This is The Naked Entrepreneur, right? So I just have to tell you the real story. Should I get undressed, or should I just stay like this? You know what? I'm
going to leave that to your decision, but okay. I'm comfortable either way.
Let's go with the non-literal meaning. So yeah, I mean, again, I had gotten one job in my life, and I was working for a company called Automated Dispatch Services. I was a programmer there, and this new Windows environment was coming along. This is 1993, 94, just before Windows 95 came out, and we're sort of pitching the idea of building a similar system. It was an ambulance dispatch system for coordinating vehicles and how they respond to emergencies. We pitched it to our boss. You really ought to look at this new world. and do it in a graphical way instead of in a sort of old school text DOS Unix way. And they didn't want to do it, so we left the company to do it ourselves. So our brilliant startup idea was basically just go, do it ourselves when we thought the company we were working for wasn't innovating enough.
Well, do you think that's what caused that decision? They were just too comfortable in their business? They couldn't see it? It took young Turks to see this new opportunity?
Well, it was also, to be fair, I mean, it was a great little business, and they really were a service business, so they weren't in the software business. They were using their own internal software to provide an ambulance dispatch service to ambulance companies. And we thought, hey, there's a market to sell this software to other companies that don't want to buy the service. So, it wasn't directly competitive. It was essentially the same type of software, just done better, less expensively, and a better product, we think.
So, how do you go from 3 people with no vision and all drive to a entity that's worthwhile, large numbers to be acquired 5 years later? Did you just make it up on the fly if you had no vision, or are you just being humble?
There was very little vision. I mean, we actually said in the book that we thought if the company ever reached $1 million in revenue or 10 employees, they would probably max out. There wasn't really a big enough market. I think today that company's still going. I think that subdivision of a now public company is probably around 300 or 400 people. It's probably in the $50 to $100 million revenue range. So I mean, it's much bigger than we imagined it would be. But we just thought, jump in. It's easy to get passionate about people that are hurt on the street that need an ambulance. It's easy to work long hours thinking about them, and we tried to build the best system for the least cost that we could. And it was, at the time, sweet spot in the market. It was innovative. It was more cost effective. It did more than other systems that cost 10 times as much, and that led to a lot of inbound momentum. And we were selling enterprise software in the 90s, so it wasn't an internet product. It was a .com thing. It didn't have anything to do with that that whole boom and bust. It was a real product that people paid real money for, and it grew over time pretty amazingly, and it shocked us all, to be honest.
Now you talk about the 97, 98, the rise of the .coms. You're obviously fairly savvy at seeing opportunities. You guys decide to do this sale, to do this exit in 99. What was driving that? Was it time? You're bored. You wanted to try the .com thing. It was good money. What was driving your decision to get out?
Yeah, I mean, so it was the third company that tried to buy us. So a lot, I've talked about this story a lot, but we all 3 of those we viewed as practice for someday. You just never know when the numbers were going to get interesting enough that it's sort of hard to say no. So it was a combination of 2 things. One, the acquirer, which was Zoll, which is a public company based in Boston. It's a medical device manufacturer. They ended up putting numbers out that were tough to say no to. At the same time, that company pitched us on their future, and they had an innovation in their technology that they thought would really have the stock take off. So, big part of business is luck and timing, take advantage of opportunities. That company's stock, when they bought us, was worth somewhere around $4 or $5 a share, and within a year or 2, it was worth $37. I remember that clearly. So a lot of the value of our exit was timing who we're going to sell it to. In fact, it was more of the value of the exit than what we had actually built up to that point. So, call that luck or call that picking your acquirer. That was the combination that had us say, wow, we really believe in where this company's going and want to be a part of it.
Now, when you get acquired, as many students don't know, but I'm sure you do in your practice, there's often founders who stay on for a certain period of time. They have clawback agreements. They have all sorts of things. But you stayed on for 5 years, which I would guess, not knowing your paperwork, was longer than you were legally required. I would also imagine at that price, you had enough money in your pocket to have different choices.
Yeah, so so this is an interesting segue to what I do today, because we had no mentors at the time. So we built this company with no real mentors helping us. We sold it idiotically with no real mentors helping us. And there were 2 huge outcomes of that. One was the 4-year lockup, which we had no idea was.
You had a 4-year lockup? So a lockup for those watching at home and the students is a agreement.
Essentially, you commit to stay in the acquiring company for at least 4 years in our case. Later I would learn as an investor that 1 or 2 years is sort of the standard. And if I had anybody negotiating for me, they would have known that. So, and that was actually a handshake. So there was no legal agreement to stay 4 years because of the form of the merger that we did. It wasn't at that time, it's a technicality, but it wasn't legal to do that. So we just shook hands and said, we'll stay for 4 years. And of course, that's what you do. It's part of the, exit compensation that you sort of agree that you'll do that. The other big lesson I learned about mentors much later was that about 5 or 6 years later, the CEO of the acquiring company said, hey, David, you guys know you left half the money on the table? We were willing to pay twice as much. And that was, especially given
what happened. Were you drinking heavily at the time? I mean, how does someone just volunteer that he took advantage?
Enough time had gone by. We had become friends. Look, we did really well. We had no complaints. But he said, look, if you guys had had somebody on your side of the table that really understood these deals, you would have doubled your exit value, or at least improved it by a substantial amount. In TechStars, which we'll get to later, where we provide mentorship, I've seen exit values doubled consistently by a mentor. So what's a mentor worth? In 5 minutes on a phone call, millions of dollars quite often.
I wasn't much of a lawyer, but I can tell you that 4-year lockup is a long period of time.
Well, I didn't know that because our lawyers didn't tell us that, and we didn't have great mentors who had done a lot of these deals. So the number one lesson I teach entrepreneurs today is surround yourself with experienced people who've been there and done that in whatever situation you're in.
Been there, done that. Very important. What was life like after the acquisition?
I bought a house that was really big, and I eventually moved out of it because I hated having so much space to take care of. It just wasn't me. I took some time off, and we came up with a list of a whole bunch of other ideas eventually that we want to do. But that's after I spent those years.
Well, hold on a second. Why?
Yeah.
You already had enough money in your pocket. You were running down on early retirement with 4 years locked in on your own honor system. Why do you then turn around and say, you know what, let's go for double or nothing, or let's double down, or let's try again?
I didn't think it was double or nothing.
You didn't put it up. You didn't put the house up.
I was 30, right?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, sitting on a beach is cool, but like I enjoy it, right? It's mental exercise, it's creation, creativity, right? I mean, it's what you do. You're an entrepreneur, you start companies, right? So as soon as I left there, right, we started another company called iContact. We went through a bunch of ideas and landed on that one. And that was my failure experience as an entrepreneur, which is very valuable. But it's what you do. You build companies and you try things. If you lose, you're not losing that much. It wasn't like a double or nothing bet, right? It was put some money into it, try to create something meaningful, and it'll work or it won't. That's okay.
Well, I want to go through it a little slower so that people can realize that failure or graceful failure or how your losses can teach you as much as your wins. And I think it's important to walk it through because people can look at you and see there's a great success, but you had your own graceful failure. So tell us about iContact. Why did you settle on that idea? What was it supposed to be?
Sure. So some of you have heard of iContact.com, and you're saying to yourselves, that doesn't sound like a failure. That's a company I've heard of. That's a different company. It was originally called IntelliContact. It was called iContact.com after they bought the domain name from me after my miserably failed startup of the same name. So don't hold it against them. Ryan and his crew have built an awesome company and recently had a great exit. It's an email newsletter company. But this company was a mobile social networking company, not unlike what you would see today in Foursquare, or maybe Looped or Brightkite or one of those companies that does mobile social networking, but just too early. So we just hit the market at the wrong time. And about a year in, realized that was what was going on. It was very hard to get distribution. It was not the right time. The app stores weren't there. The phones weren't really open. And we called it a day after about a year. And we lost a bunch of our own money and a little bit of other people's money. And figuring out when to quit at the right time matters a lot too, right? Rather than just going forever on something that's not going to work.
I don't think people realize that prior to app stores, the deck of the mobile phone was controlled by the mobile phone companies. And so you had to get the consumers to want it, but before you could even do that, you had to bribe the phone companies to allow you to even access those lists. And that
right on, yeah, totally. I mean, we learned that lesson the hard way, and even when we got distribution on the deck of the phone, right, meaning your icon was placed there, I mean, they would want to charge you 80% of your revenue.
Absolutely.
Right? And, so, it was tough to make money. In fact, the most money we ever made was we sold the domain name to iContact.com.
Do you attribute that more to the double bank shot nature, that you had to both get the phone companies and the customers, or the timing or the infrastructure not being there? Because now you could have it up and running, notwithstanding Apple's process, within a week, within 2 weeks. You could have access to it. Doesn't mean you're going to sell any.
Yeah.
But would that have changed it?
I think it would have had some impact. Timing was, we were the poster children for, we're way too early with this business, right? GPS was supposed to take off, mobile was supposed to take off, the open phone environment was supposed to take off, and what we were met with was gatekeepers and a lack of ability to get distribution, which, oh, by the way, will kill you on the internet, both of those things. Beware of building your app on top of Facebook is the modern day equivalent. Yeah. They control you. They can shut you down. They can charge you what they want. Right? That was the feeling back then. And when we figured that out and we learned those valuable lessons that cost us a lot of our own money to learn, those were useful later on in my ability to find other opportunities or screen other things, both as an entrepreneur or as an investor. Every
day you can face what looks like a failure, or what could just be waiting to succeed. I can't remember if it's Seth Godin who said it, but it's always darkest before the dawn, but it's also always darkest before you die. So how do you know which one you're in, and how do you advise now, 10 years later, when that's probably the #1 thing on people's minds? Do I keep going, or do I pivot? Do I give it up? When, everyone tells George Lucas Star Wars is a bad idea. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but look who's laughing now. How do you balance those two things?
Yeah. Well, it's the art of entrepreneurship, right? Unfortunately, there's no answer. It's up to you as the entrepreneur to make that decision. We never tell an entrepreneur to quit. Sometimes they're forced to quit because they literally run out of money and they literally have to go get a job, and that's the only way they can literally survive. But other than that, it's up to you. So you have to, again, I think the best heuristic is, am I waking up every day excited about what I'm doing? There are going to be crappy days. There are going to be days where you don't want to get out of bed. There are going to be days where you put your fist through the wall. That's just normal, right? That's just startups, all of that stuff. But when it's consistent and it's weeks at a time, months at a time, think hard about, is this really what I want to be doing? Your opportunity costs are high. You could be doing something else, right, that is working. You could be doing it with people you like better. You could be doing it with customers that you want to serve. So if you're not excited to wake up and work on it, and that's sustained, that's when I think you quit. But it's always up to the entrepreneur, and there's no science.
It's a personal decision then. It's more subjective than objective. Now, you have one win, you have one graceful failure, and what do? Within 12 months you're at it again. What, are you not getting the message? Like, why do you decide to expose yourself once again to the tumultuous chaos that is entrepreneurship?
Gosh, it's not like it's a conscious decision. It's, again, it's what you do.
So hold on, that's not so small. You're saying it's not a conscious decision. You just wake up and you start businesses.
Yeah, now I'm pissed off, right? This is my, by the way, as an investor, this is my favorite entrepreneur to back. 1 and 1, okay? Yeah. Why? They've proven they can be a successful entrepreneur, but now they're mad as hell, right? And so now this is a great person to invest in.
So what you're saying, the best investment isn't the 3-time serial entrepreneur or the 3-time failure guy. You're saying 1 and 1, so they know how big the prize is, how good it feels, but they've been kicked in the cojones, so they know that they got to work for it.
Exactly. This is if I see this pattern, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because this person is got some resources, right? They've got a lot of pride that's been damaged. The thing that we realized, because again, I was with the same founding team, right? For the first 3 companies, and it was, look, here's a mistake we made. When we started company 2, it was from the head. Right? And company 1 was from the heart. It was, let's help these people that are needing ambulances, right? We know something about this, we can build a better product. Company 2, this social network, was like, oh, this is an opportunity in the market. And we didn't have enough passion to get us through all the dips that were going to come, and we were waking up upset. So we went back to, what do we love, right? What's the passion around? And that's a prerequisite. Again, generated a big list of ideas. And this time came up with something that was solving a problem that we had, that we were annoyed by, which was called Earfeeder at that moment in time.
What was the elevator pitch of Earfeeder?
So Earfeeder delivered you real-time news and information related to the music that you love, right? So it was a news source that would understand the music you were listening to, for example, on iTunes, or would understand the bands you love, and it would say, here's a ticket. Somebody's this band is in town. You can go see them. 9 Inch Nails, whatever. You can buy a ticket here. You can read about them in Rolling Stone. So it was just like, I see the music you're listening to. I'm going to give you opportunities around those artists. And it was an affiliate model. And we didn't get very far because somebody offered to buy the company really quickly.
Well, let's talk about that. So you have a graceful failure. It's 2006. You launch Earfeeder, and boom, Sonic Swap buys it out. How did it feel on the second acquisition? Did you make sure the terms were better? You didn't have a 4-year staying period?
Well,
how was it different?
Yeah, exactly. We had 0 staying period. I mean, we were 6 months into this product, and the order of magnitude of the exit, which was much smaller. And that product was one that we built really quickly. We weren't sure that there was a long-term business there, but we knew it was something. It went very viral very quickly. So we were starting to build a little bit of buzz around it. And they offered us something and wanted us to be advisors to the company, but not active in the company. And in a way, it was like, okay, let's go on and do something else. We're not sure how big this is, but this is a nice, quick return. We didn't have any outside investors, so it was an easy decision to make.
So let's talk about TechStars. It's 2007. You've already alluded to how important working with the same people were. Your first 3 companies, you shared founders. Now you meet some new cats. And can you tell me about meeting Brad and Jared and David and what led to that?
Well, interestingly, just let me back up 1 second before that, which is David Brown, who was my co-founder at my first company and of the other ones, was one of the actual co-founders of TechStars too. So I've actually done pretty much everything with him.
Okay, good.
He has been a silent sort of money investor and is still employed by one of our past companies. But he and I were sort of the original nugget, and the idea was, look, there's mentorship is a scarce resource. Look how much money we left on the table. Look how many dumb mistakes we made. Look how much quicker we could have built these companies if we had people around us that were willing to put a little bit of money in, but share their experience. And at the same time, I had done a little bit of angel investing. I really enjoyed it because it was good mental exercise. It was a way to give back to the startup community and to work on things that were just fun and different and to help, right? And that's what a lot of entrepreneurs who have some luck and some success want to do. They just want to work on cool stuff and help make it successful. So that was the impulse. The challenge was at that moment in time, in a town of 100,000 people here in Boulder, there wasn't that much startup activity in the internet space, which is what I was interested in. And so the idea was, can we combine a better way to angel invest, meaning mentorship-focused angel investing rather than dollars invested in a coffee shop, really hands-on. Can we combine that with our community and have more interesting deals here so we have to get on fewer planes? Right, so that was the context.
So what you're telling me is you didn't want to fly outside to find deals, so you were going to have the deals all move to Boulder.
As much. We didn't want to have to travel constantly. I mean, to be an angel investor in a small town that doesn't have a huge startup ecosystem is a losing proposition in general. I think you have to be where a market is. So you need to spend time in markets that are vibrant, right? You might also invest at home. So I was willing to do both, but I wanted to change the ratio, right? So the issue we had was, sure, we'd had some success as entrepreneurs. We were putting up our own money. But we weren't nationally credible, investors, right? And here's the naked part, right? I mean, we didn't think that we would be able to do something that was a national or global pull without other people who were much more, in the spotlight. And so I had never met Brad Feld. I had made an angel investment with him in a company called Solidware. I'd seen his name on some documents. I'd read his blog, but I had never met the guy. And I was totally terrified. I reached out and I said, hey, I have this idea. I'd like to run it by you. Brad Feld, who, for those of you who don't know, is a very well-known venture capital investor, probably one of the best seed investors on the planet, in my view, which is biased. He was a guy that I thought, if we can get him involved in this thing, it'll give us a new level of credibility and awareness nationally to attract people to Boulder. So I got on his schedule and I met with him on what he calls a random day, which is a practice that I do now. 15-minute meetings all day long with anybody who wants to come talk to you. I don't care what you want to talk about. I was one of those people for him. It took me 3.5 months to get that meeting. I had a 15-minute meeting where I pitched this idea, and 10 minutes in, he said, okay, I'll invest. Right? And so that was how I met Brad in that context.
And how do you go from that in a neighborhood of 100,000 people to putting not only TechStars on the map, but Boulder itself? I mean, to say that there's a correlation between TechStars and Boulder startup scene would be an understatement. I mean, how do you feel 5 years later? How's Boulder changed as a result?
Yeah, you know, it's Boulder is on a, 15 years into a 20-year arc of doing something amazing. And certainly TechStars, was one of the last straws, if not the last straw, to really tip that scale and put it more on the national map. But, Brad had been here for a long time, been investing. A lot of other people have put a lot of energy into the startup community here. And it reminds me of the story of WordPress. Matt Mullenweg always tells it, right? It's an overnight success that took like 12 years, right?
Absolutely.
Same is true in Boulder, right? I mean, so we're just a part of it, and this community is awesome. But it feels amazing, right? Because if you, out this window, with a rock, I can probably hit 40 startups, right, from my window if I wanted to do it.
Do you do that often? Do you often throw rocks at people in the street?
About with some of them, but I've never actually done it. But it is like up and down Pearl Street, which is a block from here, something like 250 startups and 6 or 7 blocks long of a walking area, right? I mean, it's just incredibly dense with internet startups, and there's vibrant funding. The angel scene is totally different here now. People don't laugh when you say I'm doing an internet startup in Boulder. Yeah, I get it, and that feels amazing to have been a part of this community that has really.
But your ripple effect has happened to be much larger than just Boulder. I mean, to say that you were the leader or one of the first to come up with the idea of the cohort, the startup school, to see the trend that the cost to launch products was going from $5 million to $500,000 to $50,000, to do that sort of thing, you guys were really ahead of the curve. What do you think now, looking back 5 years, led to the success that you've had?
Obviously, doing it early and doing it with quality, right? I mean, we were able to stake out a position that, we were delivering quality product. We were bringing the top 1% of mentors to bear for these startups. We were getting them super engaged. We were getting a whole community behind them. We figured out, how to scale it to other cities. We're in 5 cities now, which is difficult, right, to build an organization across that geography. And now the model of accelerators is known around the world. There are something like 700 of them now.
We even have one on the campus of Ryerson University.
And I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, because the idea is they're either investing money or time, and they're aggregating mentors to actually help these companies, and they're valuing that mentorship and network that they bring. And I think it's a net positive, right? People talk about the accelerator bubble. Whatever, we're talking about a lot of people that are consciously thinking about high growth startups that are giving their time and energy from experienced entrepreneurs rather than sailing around on a yacht and hanging out, in Hawaii. They are giving back and helping these startups, sometimes with money, but most often with mentorship, and that cannot be bad. Right?
No, not bad at all.
And not all of them will work. We've been a big proponent. We were one of the founding members of something called the Global Accelerator Network. We've tried to help a lot of other programs get off the ground. Our view is, if it's good for entrepreneurs, we do it. I don't care if that means we're creating or helping our competitors. Right?
So let me ask you this. How do you choose one of these cities? Why did you choose New York? Why did you choose London? What's the common theme?
So we're in Boston, New York, Seattle, Boulder, and we also have an operation in Texas. Mm-hmm. And the reason we're in those 5 places is because we were actively investing in those places anyway. Mm-hmm. They're places that we view as good investment communities, but they actually are not as warped as Silicon Valley. So we're not in Silicon Valley by choice. There's great entrepreneurs there, there's great investors there. There's obviously a great deal of competition on both fronts. Prices are very inflated, right, for the value that the startups actually achieve.
Absolutely.
Early. And in secondary markets, when you're in the best ones and you're getting the top of those markets, that's our investment thesis. We believe that we can build just as interesting a company for a better price as investors, and we can, actually be differentiated in the communities we're in.
Well, and I think you've done a great job of doing that. So let me give you our pitch. What is it going to take for us to see TechStars Ryerson or TechStars Toronto?
Time. When people ask that, I always say, we don't have this sort of, be everywhere philosophy. Today it's not a place that I personally spend time investing in. I know it's an awesome community. I know a lot of companies from there. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs from there. Certainly in Canada, it would be a place that would be natural.
Well, Canada's a lot like Boulder, just larger.
Yeah,
it's clean and safe and nice, and people are courteous to each other. I mean, from what I read, Boulder and Canada have a lot in common.
Totally. I love there. I want to come visit. I've been there a few times. My co-founder and all those companies I was describing is from Montreal, so we've got some
That's a good choice too. That's a good choice too.
It seems like Toronto is definitely the more vibrant community from what we hear and the reputation. So that's exciting. It's a relationship. It's a someday thing for us. I mean, we're not actively planning expansion, but we are helping other programs get off the ground. You guys have programs up there like Founder Fuel and others that we've helped, and are part of this network that we've built that shares best practices and tries to help entrepreneurs. But if we were ever to grow internationally, which I don't know we'll do, it'd certainly be one of the places we would think about.
Well, people would say London may also be an international location to grow to, but we'll go toe-to-toe with them. I want to go to the advice section, because you have so much experience and our students want to hear it. So first and foremost, what's the dirty secret? When someone goes to pitch for TechStars, what's the one thing you can't resist? What's the one thing you look for, either positive or negative?
Team. I mean, it's all we talk about. There's a, how anybody in the audience that's working on any kind of internet startup would say the best software developer, the top 1%, is 10 times better than the next 9%. Than a top 10 developer, and probably 100 times better than everybody else.
Yeah, I think isn't that Zipf's law or the 10x rule that you sort of work out like that?
Right. You should pay that 1% developer 3 or 4 times what you pay anybody else.
And you still make more money, yeah.
And I believe the same is true of mentors, right? I think that the top 1% of mentors, the people that have really got the experience, that have been the operators, right, that are very hands-on, have huge networks, and very engaged, really matter. So by the same token, it's business. It's all about people, right? And so you're looking for people that have passion, have vision, have raw talent and skills that are off the chart amazing, right? And so that's what we focus on. We look hard at where is your passion coming from? Is it sustainable? What's your talent? Like, can you do stuff? Because entrepreneurs do stuff. They don't wait to get into a program to do stuff, right? They just do stuff. Absolutely. And they don't let things like money slow them down. They just run through that wall too. Right, and that's what we're looking for. We're just, relationship over a period of time. Mark Suster would call it, lines, not dots. Don't give me a bunch of points of view, once in a while. Give me a relationship over a period of time. And once we understand the people, then it's a question of, the tiebreakers of market, idea, progress, things like that.
You talk about the importance of relationships and the importance of mentors, and I couldn't agree with you more. What do you think makes for the best mentor-mentee relationship? What can they do as founders to really get the most from their mentors?
Okay, so the question sets up an interesting paradox. I actually think the best mentor relationships are two-way. I think if I'm going to be a mentor, I want to learn something from the person I'm mentoring. Maybe not today, but maybe in a few years. Right, and so I think the absolutely most important thing is to try to get to a two-way relationship. Give before you get, right? That's what the best mentors do. The best entrepreneurs do that too, right? They're thinking about, wow, this person's helping me. How can I help them? Can I use their product? Can I give them some feedback? Those are little things, right? But people forget about them. And I think over time, it's building a real relationship with them. Probably the number one tactical tip would be close the loop. Right? Like,
what does that mean, close the loop?
The number one thing I see that people do wrong is they get some advice from a mentor, and if they're going to take that advice, they're pretty good at closing the loop and saying, hey, I did that thing that we talked about, here it is, play with it, isn't that awesome? But if they don't take the advice, they don't close the loop. And if you go back to the construct in the beginning, two-way relationship, as a mentor, I want to learn why you made the decision you made. I don't want to watch you fall on your face or succeed because of your decision. That's how I learn.
So it's the same as agile development, the same as customer development. Mentor development is create a feedback loop. Share the why you took the advice, why you didn't take the advice, so that you can both fine-tune each other. Is that what you're saying?
Totally. And I can learn, right? I get back from it. The huge miss is when you don't do that and you just dismiss a mentor whose advice you're not following. That is a huge lost opportunity Because if you come back to that mentor and say, I heard you tell me A, we're going to go with B. We thought a lot about it. We think B is better. Okay, now that mentor has a chance to learn, right? If you come back and you say B was incredibly successful, they learn. If you come back and say, no, we should have done A, B was a flop, they get more confidence in the data they gave you, and you've built a relationship. So just because you're not taking the advice, don't view it as, let me pick the mentors that I agree with. You want to surround yourself with contradictory ideas, new ideas, and people that you can say, hey, I'm not doing what you said. I heard you, but I want to build a relationship with you. We're going to try this other thing. And either way, it's a two-way feedback loop. It's a closed loop. And either way, the mentor learns.
Two-way feedback loop, be open to a two-way street, communicate well. I want to ask you, now that you have 5 years of cohorts under your belt, now that you have affiliates and you've seen a wide plethora of startups over a cornucopia of cities, tell me, what do you think all the winners have in common?
They make a lot of money.
That's like saying I won the basketball game because I got more baskets than the other team. What do you think is driving that?
Or more points than the other team. Okay, so it's cliche, but it's so true, right? And people hear it as cliche, but it just is. It is what it is, right? They build awesome teams, right? I mean, it's easy to say, but why does it come? I mean, I'm wearing a SimGrid shirt. I don't know if you guys know SimGrid, huge company doing incredibly well. The founders of that company were dedicated to hiring people better than them. They were dedicated to enabling them to do their job. Jim Franklin came in as CEO. They're amazing technical founders. They've hired awesome people in every position. They've surrounded themselves with the best investors, present company excluded. They've got awesome people on their board. And it's the people, right? I mean, you have to have a great idea. But if you have great people, you will get to the right stuff, right? You will figure it out, learn on the fly, change as needed. As long as you're in a market that's interesting and there's opportunity, the best people will win. So it's all about the team and your ability to build it as a founder.
All about team and execution. My goal today was to get you to open up and to share some of your true stories, and I think you've really done that. You've really been very naked, despite your wearing clothes, and I very much appreciate that. We are going to take some questions from our students, and we'll be right back after this.
Some ideas are hot. Some ideas are not. This is a hot idea. Twitter, using 148 characters to instantly digitally connect with anyone in the real world. This is not. Jersey Shore, 8 characters, not connected to anything real in the world. This is a hot idea. Facebook, efficiently sharing social news with your friends. This is not. Using Facebook to show how drunk you were at the office party. This is a hot idea. Posting your unwanted goods to Craigslist, the world's home of free classified ads. This is not. Posting your sister to Craigslist. Friends don't let friends pursue bad ideas. Find out if your idea is hot or not.
We're live with David Cohen from Boulder, Colorado. Now up, student questions.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, you were talking about when you're acquiring mentors like Brad in his 10-minute random time. What would you say your biggest challenge is when meeting with these mentors to bring them to your startups? Or what is it that connects all of those mentors together? Is it a fear of retirement? Is it their desire to give back? What would you say is the binding thing that connects all your mentors?
Because most of your mentors, as I understand it, David, have invested some of their own capital in some cases. Most of them are committed. What's driving that decision? Why are they there?
So, I mean, honestly, our biggest problem, right, is not what you would expect. It's we have too many people who want to mentor. And again, I mentioned the top 1%, so we're extremely picky on that. And we actually don't know what to do with a lot of the other mentors, which is one of the reasons we started the network, to point them at other programs where they could help. When you get into the motivations of mentors, there are several. I mean, most of our mentors are not investors in TechStars, and many of them have never invested in a startup. So we lean heavily towards operators. People are active entrepreneurs that have had some measure of success or experience. We actually like mentors that have had both success and failure. We think it's important. We do have some mentors that do it for deal flow. I'd say it's the minority. I mean, you do have some venture capital investors that are mentors, but a lot of them are just operators. The thing that I think most of them are motivated by is quality. The quality filter that we provide. So we accept less than 1% of applicants in many programs. I think on average we're at like 1.4%. It's hard to get in. And so when you're a mentor, you know that you're going to get some high potential material to work with in that startup. And many of them want to get back. Most successful entrepreneurs want to get back, but they don't have a construct to do that in that's both social and high quality, right? So they're just getting all these emails, and they have to do the job of filtering what's really interesting here, what's worth me spending my time on. Again, not necessarily from being an investor as a point of view, but from wanting to have an impact, right? I mean, I want to work on some of this high potential. So we do that filtering work for them. They then have a social construct to engage within. So they're working with 5 or 10 other mentors that are just as high quality as they are on a company, right? And so there is real mental exercise, there's real network building, there's a real quality level of engagement. Some of them are interested in deal flow, and all of them are interested in their startup community getting better.
Thanks very much. I think we have one more question, David.
I just want your insight on how important you think it is for an incubator or accelerator to function as a business itself.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in the for-profit engine, right? I think that the most successful ones, probably today, and I think in the future will be driven by getting success when their entrepreneurs get success, right? It's alignment of interests. Now, that said, there's certainly plenty of great programs that are government sponsored or nonprofit that can be helpful to startups, and I think it's awesome. But I do believe that to have a vested interest in the startup you're trying to help, I think that's what you should really want as an entrepreneur. You should want somebody that has a reason to help you beyond they're getting a salary to do this for the government. I think again both can be helpful, but I do believe in that sort of aligned interests paying off. That's why, for example, I don't advise startups that I don't invest in. Right? I don't want to be compensated for being an advisor to a startup when I'm not putting my money behind it too. Right? I get a lot of offers to do that. I just don't believe in it. I believe I won't be as engaged, and I won't have as much on the line.
Well, we've had you on the line for just about all the time we have tonight, and I want to thank you on behalf of myself, our students, and all of Ryerson University for being so truly naked with us and sharing the ups and downs of your career so far. And we hope you will come up to Canada, and we hope we will be your first north of the border TechStars location.
Thanks. I've had a great time, and I'm curious whether your audience is naked or not, but it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, and good night. Tonight our guest was David Cohen, CEO and founder of TechStars. He talked about mentorship and the power of graceful failure. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Naked Entrepreneur.